The original set date for the UK's departure from the EU, which was, of course, the 29th of March this year. Now, it's nearly 3 years since the UK voted to leave the EU in that 2016 referendum. And in the run-up to the European elections on the 23rd of May, the results won't come out for a few days after that, we are talking to all the main UK parties here on the BBC News Channel, and we're putting your questions to them. That is the format, OK? We're putting your questions to them. And today, taking your questions, is the leader of the Brexit Party, the new Brexit Party, Nigel Farage. Thanks very much for coming in, Nigel. It's good to see you again. And we've had loads of questions. So the first thing I want to do is to thank all the viewers for sending in a ton of questions, and not an easy task to select, a decent cross-section of them. And what I'll do with all the questions is mention the Christian name or first name of the person who's sent them in and where they're from. So that's the format. Hopefully we'll get through quite a few in the allocated time. So we're going to start with Andrew in Middlesbrough. Andrew, thank you very much for the question. Now, this is a World Trade Organization question, WTO as it's called. Each time you, Mr. Farage, request a WTO Brexit, says Andrew, you fail to admit that there will be a significant number of job losses. My manufacturing company, he says, is one, but the car industry supply chains are another. And this applies right across the UK. So will you just acknowledge that this solution, this WTO solution, will involve job losses? What's your answer to Andrew?
No, absolutely not.
Right.
Look, under Article 24 of the original GATT Treaty, we can apply, and the European Union have to join us in this, to have a 2-year period of no tariffs, no quotas, during which we can sort out a trade relationship with the European Union.
Well, theoretically, it could be a 10-year period.
It could be up to 10, but 2 years is standard. But either way, there needs to be no short-term shock at all. Look, what is Brexit about? Brexit is about leaving political union. I came from the world of commodity trading. I came from the world of business. I want as fewer barriers to trade as we can possibly have. But the problem is this. The British government never asked for a free trade deal. The British government, under Mrs May, asked for a close and special partnership. So let's go WTO. Let's leave political union, leave the European Court of Justice, not pay them $39 billion, apply for Article 24. It's a very soft landing.
So because you've clearly expressed that before, that view, I kind of had a look at it to see what the possible responses were, and they were as follows. That yes, you could apply for up to 10 years, but it is provided there is, and this is the quote, a plan and schedule agreed for concluding a final deal. And it is highly unlikely, say lots of people, that that plan and schedule would be in place with the EU before we left. And for that reason, the Article 24 solution is a highly unrealistic proposal.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, we've been to Geneva. We've met the World Trade Organization. They are more than happy to broker this solution. That's what they're there for. They're there to make trade across the world easier. So I think it was a very simple way of doing this. Let's go for it. Let's be positive.
I suppose another solution would be to say to you, well, if it's that clear, if it's that simple, if it's that clear-cut, why on earth is it not on the table?
Well, this is so interesting because whatever this government have said, they don't actually want a clean political break from the European Union. Mrs May's deal, as they call it, it's not a deal, it's a new European treaty, keeps us very closely tied to all parts of the European Union. And that's why people like me use words like betrayal, because they pretend to do one thing when actually they're doing another. We want to leave political union and have great trading ties. That's the way I want to go.
Steve in Guernsey, can you please explain exactly how much more each family would have to pay for their weekly shopping basket as a consequence of reverting to the WTO tariffs? Do you accept that it would involve a higher cost of living for
Absolutely
people?
not. There are 12,500 everyday goods that we use, everything from underwear to children's shoes to all sorts of cut flowers or green beans from Kenya or whatever it may be. 12,500 goods that the household buys on a regular basis across this country, on which tariffs are imposed by the European Union. We leave the European Union, we then have the choice. If we wanted to, we could cut the shopping basket very significantly. Look, let's just be clear about this. The WTO is a basis for trading. You then, as a nation state, make your own decisions above that. If we wanted to, we could reduce shopping baskets quite significantly.
So the WTO option, you say, is one that is potentially cost-free?
Yeah, look, the WTO is a basis for trading. What happens thereafter is up to the British government. We could opt to make everything more expensive. Because we could leave tariffs on with the European goods and not...
You might not have a choice.
Well, no, of course we'll have a choice, because ultimately they sell us 110 million bottles of Prosecco every year, lots of BMWs, lots of many other goods, but it's up to us to make decisions. The idea that food prices would go up because we leave European Union with no deal is for the birds.
OK. Mark from Selby, question number 3. Who funds your party? And Mark says, political parties need to be financially transparent. So can you tell us who funds you?
We are the most transparent political party in the UK, but here's the exciting thing. The really exciting thing, we're just approaching 100,000 people who in less than 5 weeks have signed up as registered supporters of the Brexit Party, paying £25 a head. I've never seen fundraising at grassroots level in this country ever, and it's really, really exciting. Yeah, sure, we've had one very big donation, which we don't have to declare at all until the end of the campaign, or the Electoral Commission do it, and we've already declared the name of that individual. No other party.
Any others?
No other party.
Any other big donations?
There are lots in the pipeline.
OK.
There are lots in the pipeline.
And how soon would you be ready to divulge those?
Well, of course, no other party has given you a single name of anyone that's backed them, but the story is being missed here. The story is it's grassroots fundraising on a level never seen before in British politics, and that's really interesting.
That phenomenon certainly is that it's notable. There's no question about that. It's the extent to which you're also happy to tell us if you get big donations, and that's the issue.
Well, no other party has declared any single donation. We've already declared our other big donation. We are more transparent than the rest put together.
OK, I'll be putting the same question to the other parties.
And you won't get an answer.
Yeah, well, we'll see. OK, so that was Mark in Selby, wasn't it? OK, Christopher in West Sussex. Christopher, thank you very much for this question. This is about Northern Ireland. What would you do to try to avoid a hard border between the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland?
We're not building a hard border. They're not building a hard border. The European Union is not building a hard border. Now, unless Donald Trump's coming over to build a wall, I just don't know what this is all about. Do you know, when the prospect was raised a couple of months ago of us perhaps leaving with a no-deal WTO Brexit, it was really interesting that the Irish Taoiseach the next day said there'll be no hard border. Monsieur Barnier said there'll be no hard border. What would the potential problems be? One is tariff, if tariffs were collected, although I believe through Article 24 we can avoid all of that. But even if there were tariffs, you know, we don't stop goods at borders and empty the backs of lorries. All of this gets logged online under the Trusted Trader Scheme. That's how the world works. The second would be product differences in specifications. But after 45 years of European Union membership, we start off with everything exactly the same. There is no difficulty with the Irish border whatsoever.
Despite the fact that it becomes, overnight after Brexit, an external border for the EU, and that creates an issue.
Well, they're already different countries. We happen to be in the European Union, yes, but they're already different countries, and that border operates since, thank goodness, the Good Friday Agreement, on the basis of live and let live, and we'll go on doing that. Already you have different currencies, different income tax rates, different excise duties. Already huge differences exist, but life goes on as it will.
Are you resentful when you hear lots of people say, and lots of experts say, technical and technological experts say, the technological solution to it doesn't exist? It might exist in future. It doesn't exist now. So all of your online logging and stuff doesn't get us there.
You know, if you see that bridge in Detroit that goes back and forth from Canada, every day goods flow back and forth on which tariffs are due. The drivers tap it in on their mobile phones. Come on, we're living in the 21st century. Let's get with it.
OK, Matthew is asking this. I'm not sure where Matthew's from, by the way. Matthew asks this. Ahead of a general election, given that you're where you are in the polls now, so people are looking at levels of support. Ahead of a general election, do you not think we should know what some of your policies would be on matters other than Brexit?
Of course.
Such as health and education and crime. So Matthew's asking, for example, for a headline policy on health. What would that be?
Matthew, absolutely. But, Matthew, next Thursday, we have a national election. It's a European election. It's been contested on European issues. And I'm arguing it should be contested on democracy. We voted to leave. We were promised in a general election we would leave. 500 MPs voted for us to leave, and we didn't leave on March the 29th. Let's deal, Matthew, with that. And after next Thursday, you will hear a lot of policies from us. However, I will never call it a manifesto. That, to me, is the most abused word in the English language. In most people's minds, manifesto means lie. I will call it a contract with the people.
OK, you've made that point. I think Matthew's point is, and other people too, who sent in lots of similar questions, are that even before they go into the polling booth on Thursday for the European elections, they'd like a better idea of what you're about.
Why? They're voting for MEPs. Because they're voting for members of the European Parliament.
What's your party about in terms of its view of the world and its view of Britain in future?
Come on, you know what it's about. It's about us being an independent country. It's about us reaching out to the Commonwealth. It's about us helping the 5.4 million people in this country who act as sole traders and self-employed. And it's about major political reform. And I've made all that clear already.
I've got that. But, for example, on such a massive issue as, this is to do with philosophy, on such a massive issue as the future of the health service, which would help people to understand the colour, the philosophical colour of your party. What would you say to them?
Matthew, I'm not going to play that game, and I'll tell you why. If we do that, we actually would be beginning to ignore the fact that the greatest democratic exercise in the history of this nation has actually been overturned by Parliament. I saw today Jeremy Corbyn saying, we're going to talk about local issues. No, let's talk about the European issue. Matthew, I promise you after that, you can ask me as many questions as you want on other policy.
Do you think Labour's a Leave or a Remain party now?
That's a really good question. I've absolutely no idea. Clearly, Jeremy Corbyn has played this game of constructive ambiguity, sitting on the fence and getting away with it. And yet in the last week, he's beginning to leach votes to the Liberal Democrats, who are clearly now the Remain party. Change UK have disappeared. We'll never hear from them again, in my opinion. And on the other side, he's losing votes to us in a big way. Why? Because nearly every single one of Labour's MEP candidates are Remainers who support a second referendum. And fascinatingly, there are 5 million Labour voters who voted Leave. I'm in South Wales tomorrow. It's a classic area. There was a bigger Leave vote in South Wales than there was in England, and these are big Labour areas too. So I think the Labour Party has got big problems over this, and we so often talk about the splits in the Tory party. Labour's got some issues as well.
I was asking because after 2017, you and others have been very quick to say, well, hang on a sec, let's look at how the vote stacked up in 2017, and the assumption being that, you know, Labour, given what it had said about Brexit, was in effect a Leave party.
Yes.
So you're now saying you're not sure where they are?
Well, Jeremy Corbyn plays this game, as I say, of being in the middle. But let's look at it. The Deputy Leader, Tom Watson, wants a second referendum. Keir Starmer, the Brexit Secretary Shadow, wants a second referendum. 180 of their MPs have voted for a second referendum. Labour is, in effect, a Remain party now, and that gives them a huge problem. I'm
going to squeeze in one more, Nigel, if I can. Caroline is asking this. In future, would the Brexit Party consider forming an alliance with the Conservatives in order to ensure that Brexit could be delivered? This comes after, Crispin Brunt, the Tory MP, was suggesting the two parties could work together. So is that something that you would consider anathema or not?
Well, trusting people is a very real issue, given that both parties have made promises and let us down very badly. But I would say this. If there was a possibility of doing a deal that got us out of the single market, out of the customs union, out of the European Court of Justice, and be a truly independent country, in order to achieve that, I'd do a deal with the devil.